Guys, welcome back to the Be Real podcast. Today I got my buddy Jesse. We're going to be talking about alcoholism, infidelity, and identity, and how he got to get through all of that. You're going to hear his awesome story. So get ready for the Be Real podcast. All right, brother. So, ready to go?
Let's do it.
Still haven't got to try your chili yet, but I'm going to try it.
Yeah, it's not worth
it. Dude, okay, so obviously, name is Jesse. You want to say your full name, I guess?
Jesse Aaron Sial is the full name.
That's what's up. How old are you, bro?
28.
28?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, you're only 2 years older than me.
Yeah.
That's trippy. That's what's up. Where were you? You were born in...
Singapore.
Singapore.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And then y'all moved to Pennsylvania?
So from Singapore, we moved to California. From California to Minnesota. After Minnesota, I believe we were to and fro from Pennsylvania and Singapore pretty much my whole life.
Yeah.
And then we lived a few years in New Zealand, and then after New Zealand, we moved over to Malaysia, and then from Malaysia.
Why'd y'all move so much?
My parents are missionaries.
That's
So,
right.
yeah.
They're with YWAM.
YWAM,
right?
Yep, over 40 years.
That's what's up.
Yes,
That's
sir.
What's up. So Singapore, how old were you when y'all moved over here, or when y'all moved the first
So
time?
born in Singapore, 3 months old, moved to Cali. My sister was born over there. Before me, my two older brothers were born in Taiwan. And then from Singapore, we were probably there.
So where are y'all citizens of? Everywhere?
Yeah, no. Well, I was a dual citizen from. I had a Singapore citizenship, and United States citizenship, and then there's a thing called NS in Singapore. It's national service. So you're required when anyone hits 18 years old that they have to go back to serve in the Army for 4 years or something like that.
Yeah.
But because we were already established in America, you either had to denounce your Singapore citizenship and just be full American, or you would be known as a person that's under treason.
Dang.
Yeah, you wouldn't be allowed back for 10 years. You'd get arrested, all that good stuff, all that wonderful stuff. But so it was just easier for us to denounce the Singapore citizenship. Not that in my heart I denounce it, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
For practical reasons.
Yeah, practical reasons. Exactly. There you go.
That's what's up. So where was the place that you most enjoyed living, actually?
Man, that's a tough question. There's benefits to everywhere, cons to every place. As far as like the scenic weather, the terrain, New Zealand takes the cake for sure. Southeast Asia, anywhere in Southeast Asia, the food. The culture's really, it's a lot like the Hispanic culture, very family oriented, a lot of tight knit friends and stuff like that. But I would definitely say that America Pennsylvania has been a huge part of my life because my young adult years were there, went to high school, graduated, stuff like that. And so
that's where you got all your ink too, right?
All my ink, pretty much all my ink. Yeah, the majority of it, yes, sir.
That's what's up, dude. So what did you want to share about specifically on the podcast? I know we talked a little bit yesterday, and I was kind of like, bro, it's up to you. Whatever it is that you want to chat about.
Well, I think that kind of putting some. I would say probably the start of my salvation and kind of where it's led me today is probably what I'll talk about the most. I in the past, whenever I shared my testimony, I would highlight a lot of the sin, a lot of the things that I struggled with, but don't really want to focus on that. I think that everyone deals with sin or just struggles in their life, in one way or the other, and it's all relatable to some degree. Yeah. And so, the drugs, the sex, the whole drug, sex, rock and roll kind of lifestyle was really big in my life. Yeah. Pride was a huge thing.
As with any man,
yeah, just feeling like you're untouchable, that you can pretty much do whatever you want, everyone's going to listen to you. I've always been a really good talker, and I've always been a leader. And so, when I wasn't living for righteousness, those gifts were used for the wrong reasons. Yeah. And so, I'd say that, my life being uprooted so much as a kid, talking about moving around so much has, it affects you a lot because, when you're really young, it doesn't really matter. But when you start being able to build relationships and then you have to uproot and move again, and you're the new kid on the block constantly. Yeah. I probably went to 10 schools before I graduated.
Yeah.
And and there was a lot of difficulty in that because, you know, you're going from like the metric system to the standard system. So you're taught this way, and then you move to another country and they do it this way.
So even just education-wise.
Education-wise, very, very difficult.
If you're being honest, at times did it make you feel like you're stupid?
Oh, 110%. And that was a big part of it. It was you know, it's kind of like, well, mom's saying this thing, dad's saying this thing, and you don't know who to listen to if that's a dynamic that people can relate to. And so with the whole school system, that really kind of messed me up. And of course, you know, not being a kid that fit in with grades, I went to, you know, being the funny guy or being the jokester or, you know, just kind of, you know, insecurities coming out in different forms of fashion, violence, and whatever else it might be. And so, excuse me. So I think that, you know, with all that uprooting and moving, there was a lot of dysfunction in my family, which I thought was normal. You know, growing up in Malaysia, my brothers were heavily involved in the Asian triads, Chinese mafia. Yeah. And so, you know, I was young, but I was surrounded by all that, you know, smoking crystal meth at 12 and, you know, just being involved in fight training and just all kinds of crazy stuff, man, that no one should be, you know, exposed to. But, you know, being exposed to all that stuff, it kind of messes you up, but you think it's normal, right? And so, go ahead.
Yeah. It's not different. Like, it's not abnormal until somebody tells you it is. You know what I mean?
Outside
For the most
looking
part,
in,
you're just like, whoa, like this is life.
Right, this is life, exactly. And so, anyways, I went through all that, and you know, when we moved to the States, that's when I was around, you know, 13, 14 years old, and kind of found my own way. You know, I got kicked out of a private school and for, you know, beating a kid up on the school bus, and just so I did homeschooling for a little while, and then I, you know, during that homeschooling point, I got involved with, you know, a thing called Joshua Generation with YWAM. It's like a youth program for, you know, you going out, you minister, and, you know, you fall in love with God and all this other stuff, but nothing really sticks. You know, it's kind of like it's kind of like the firework approach, where it's a blast of emotion and a blast of what you think is real and a blast of whatever else it might be, but quickly dies out. And so there was no deep-rooted belief system. It was just kind of like, hey, I'm here. This is fun. This is great. And
or so more than anything, I don't think deep-rooted belief system. Maybe more like teaching. There wasn't enough teaching, because teaching would be what would stick, and also that's dependent on every person, obviously. Like, yeah,
I mean, I think in my opinion, the whole thing is what's your why, right? Exactly. And so for me, my why wasn't because Christ died on the cross for me.
It was still trying to.
It was still, you know, going through the motions of growing up and puberty and finding your friends and finding your, you know, where you fit in, and just kind of. You know, my why wasn't anything that was solid. It was something that was finite, which changes, you know, constantly. And so my why wasn't steady, and so neither was my faith.
Yeah. So you could see it from the beginning. You're here. You're not really fitting anywhere because you're not really allowed to,
right?
Given the circumstances.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're not given any time to fit. So I could definitely see where the feeling of like not feeling like you fit in and wanting to, and wanting some consistencies,
right?
Like most likely uprooted, where you wanted that. So eventually, you got led to Christ, or you went to Christ. Doesn't mean somebody led you there, but that's where you started feeling like you fit in.
No. So the whole jumping around thing, there was pros and cons to it. You know, one of the biggest pros is being able to learn how to adapt to all different cultures and different types of people.
Yeah.
And so once that was already instilled into me, when I did go to public school in high school, I started in public school, Bell Vernon High School in Pennsylvania. And so I started as a junior, actually. Yeah. So between 8th grade and 10th grade, it was all homeschooled, and then senior year, I was in public school. But by then, I was already so good at just people pleasing and just being that guy that everyone likes. There was never a click for me, because I didn't just fit in here, or there. Yeah. Because I grew up doing this. Yeah. It was all kind of put together, and I was just friends with everybody.
But you still feel alone and isolated.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. Yeah. I mean, you know, you're always going to feel that way, you know, without something solid in your life. And so, you know, a lot of that is just, you know, doing whatever I can to fit in, whether that's being the guy that's willing to do that prank or that joke that people aren't willing to do, people want to do, or people would like to see happen. Yeah. And so I was always that guy that was willing to, you know, upset teachers, and do all that stuff.
I kind of want to, honestly, dude, I kind of want to dig in here Dang, I feel like I have some crust in my eye.
Yeah, let's look at that. Let's take a closer look at that
Let's
crust.
zoom in on that real quick.
Yeah, I'd like some thin crust, not that stuff.
But I kind of want to dig onto this because it seems like identity is huge right here, like in what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I identify with that a lot because, for example, if you went to my birthday party this past year, I had software salesmen, people that could develop technology. I had business dudes. I had millionaires. I had people in the fight industry. I had fighters. I had gamers. I had Mexicans, obviously, because that's my family. You
gotta have some Mexicans.
I had people that go to church. I had people that believe in science. I have people that are atheists. I literally, like you, I don't have a circle.
Right.
I have so many circles that I can fit into, and there's points. There's times in my life where I'm I get that I'm trying to blend into all of these people. For me, it's mainly because I just love people in general, and I want everyone to feel accepted and loved, period. But then sometimes the thought comes am I going against my identity because it's not that I'm changing it, I'm just blending it to fit here and blending it to fit here. Was that ever a thought that crossed through your mind? Does it still cross through your mind, or did it ever?
Like Paul says, right? Be all people to all people,
Yeah.
right? And so you have to learn how to be able to adapt, to connect and relate to certain people without changing your heart or your personality type, but you're able to kind of not morph, but just position yourself, because not everyone's like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of
I feel personality does need to change a little bit depending on the circle. Because for example, if me and you go in
but that's I would say that's part of your personality.
Yeah.
Is being able to adapt in those certain situations, right? It's kind of not everyone has universal blood type.
Yeah.
Right. And so for people like us, where we can adapt with everyone, not everyone can adapt the way we do. So we have to form ourselves to put ourselves in their shoes in a situation, because we've either been there or have had some sort of experience that can relate with them, to allow them to be more comfortable and connect with us more genuinely.
Yeah, that makes sense. So finally end up getting brought to the Lord. What was that experience of salvation?
So salvation didn't happen until I think I was 23 or 24. I think I was 23. I moved to Texas, met this girl Lacey, who's now my wife.
Let's go.
Bless the Lord Almighty. You're so sexy. She's awesome, man. But when I met her, we were both broken in our own ways. We weren't, we weren't churchgoers. We weren't Christ followers. We were just, at least myself, I was a partier. I was the center of attention, or at least I tried to be, and Lacey and I got together real quick. It's funny because when I brought her home, my mom, who's always been nah, she ain't the one. She's not good for you. You know, Mama Bear, right? She's protecting of her kids. And when I brought Lacey home, within the first week, my mom said that's the girl that you're going to marry.
Wow.
And I was like, slow your roll, mama. You know what I'm saying? I ain't talking about marriage yet.
Still kind of doing my thing.
Still doing my thing. And, but of course, come 3 months later, we're engaged.
Wow.
And that's where everything kind of, around that time is when rock bottom just really hit me. I was a full-blown alcoholic. My brother owned several pawn shops in the area. I was working for him. I was managing a store out in Wiley. I was stealing thousands of dollars off my brother to support my alcohol habit for 2.5 years.
He knows, right?
Oh, 100%.
He's going to watch this video and be like,
yeah,
dog,
yeah.
what?
You say, what? No, he knows, man. My brother was filled with grace, and he even suspected, he didn't know the amount or how much it was, but at this point, my brother had been saved for probably 10 years, and so he had a lot of grace. Now, if it was before, back in the day, might lose a limb or two. And so, man, he was filled with grace. And but anyways, with that whole time of my life, I couldn't go a night without being blacked out drunk.
Yeah.
I couldn't sleep without being blacked out drunk. It was literally so bad that outside of my house there was a patch of mold that was growing in the mulch because I threw up there every single night. Wow. Every single night I threw up in the same spot, so there was mold that was actually growing. It was like manifestation of sickness.
Jeez.
It was pretty crazy. But no, man, I think that.
What do you think led you to the alcohol?
Oh man,
and kept you there?
Yeah, so alcohol. The thing that so when it first got introduced to me, because when I was living in Malaysia, 10, 12 years old, going into the store, buying a pack of beer, that's normal. Buy beer for yourself at that young age, cigarettes and everything else. And then when we moved to America, obviously that kind of stuff changed. So I had a lot of drinking experience when I was really young. And then coming to the United States where you couldn't do that, it wasn't accessible anymore, just stopped drinking naturally. And then, did the Joshua Generation thing. And, I loved God at that point. And so it wasn't in my life. And even when I went to high school, to public school, I was a kid that was bringing everyone to youth group. Yeah. And so I wasn't really, I wasn't drinking or nothing. I'd go to parties, but I wouldn't partake in any of the party favors, nothing like that. And then one night I went to a party, man, and I was drinking my drink, which wasn't alcoholic, but it was spiked. And I got wasted, and I loved it. And so I just kept doing it, and just kept drinking. And, we were I was a vocalist for I say a few, but I was a vocalist for a band, and I was in a couple of other bands just kind of doing the whole hardcore scene. And there's a lot of partying involved and stuff like that. And so you would just drink. And then when I came to Texas, things were different. When I was in Pennsylvania, I get pulled over, and they'd be like, "Is that you, Jesse?" Yeah. "That's me. Who's that?" It's Officer XYZ. "Oh, okay, cool. You drunk?" "Oh, I'm slammered." "Cool, let me drive you home." "All right, bet." Come to Texas, 3 weeks in, get pulled over. I'm like, "Hey, it's Officer who?" And he's like, "You're going to jail." I'm like, "All right, cool. I guess it's different here, And so,
I guess we're going to roll that way.
Right. So that was like probably a week before I turned 21 is when I got pulled over for drinking and driving, went to jail, did that whole thing, set me back a lot, and I had a breathalyzer in my car. And so now I didn't have to drive home. My homies were driving me home. So my drinking levels were, I can get smashed every night.
So when they were trying to get you to chill,
it actually made me drink more.
Wow.
And so I was just slamming them back. And I think that there's a level of when you find a group that to the world look cool, and they love you and they accept you, and what they do is drinking too, you just dive right in. And so what became, hey, wanting to fit in, being a part of a group, came into, I can't go to sleep without being torn up. And so anyways, man, during that whole time, Lacey, she's just a victim in all this. She's just a victim of abuse, physically, emotionally, verbally. I put a loaded gun in her face. I can't tell you how many times. She's just, the fact that she's still with me just shows her level of grace. And,
but in those moments, I think it would be fair to say it's not that you didn't love her. It's just that in those moments, you probably just didn't love yourself.
Well, I think that the word love is tossed around a lot. Like, man, I love this setup here. I love this jacket.
I love lamp.
Yeah, I love lamp. And I also love my son. Yeah. Is it the same word? Is it the same meaning? And so I think that it wasn't so much, I didn't understand what real love actually was. Yeah. So not knowing kind of goes with not being able to do so as well. Mm-hmm. And so, I think the heart's intent for my desire to make her happy was not paired with knowing how to cater to a woman's heart. Mm-hmm. And so there was none of that. There was just my belief set growing up in, seeing how gang members treat girls and seeing how traditional Chinese people treat women. You know what I'm saying?
This was partially normal because it wasn't like that in your household, but the environments that you saturated yourself in, like,
I mean, there was some in my household too. You know what I mean? I mean, you got my mom who's a Pennsylvania native, Polish, white Jew, amazing woman of God, and then you got my dad who's like traditional Chinese, grew up in a kampong, which is like a basically a hut, like a traditional hut, and you bring these two worlds together that collide, and it's like you got their issues that they get from their parents, and it's like you bring these two cultures together, and it's like
collision.
And so from my experience, and this isn't a blanket statement, but not every culture treats women right, and it's culturally acceptable to not. And so So there was a dynamic of the house. There was a dynamic of what I was surrounded with outside the house. Mm-hmm. There was never really good examples, and even today, where are the good examples for men treating women the right way? Even in the church, it's lacking. You know what I mean? It's there. It's and again, not a blanket statement, but
well, I think in humans naturally, it's. I hate to say it, but I almost feel like it's always going to lack because there's always going to be pain in the world. And where pain is not dealt with correctly, that's where outlashes happen.
100%.
And we're never going to deal with every pain in our life correctly.
Right.
It's just not, because we're human.
Right.
That's why we need God.
For sure. No, 100%. And I'm definitely with you on that. And I think that, and I think that part of, what real revival looks like is men stepping up to the plate and leading the household the way God intended us to. And that starts from within. Everything is inside out. And so a lot of times, this is kind of sidetracking, but people will go on these mission trips afar, but their home life is still in a mess. Yeah. And it's like, well, what's the point of that if you're going to come home to another battlefield when you should be really working on in your home first and maybe getting to know your neighbors' names and kind of working inside out. Yeah. But that's a different podcast. And so we can look forward to that one. But I think that through all that, just kind of getting back on track with where we were, Lacey she put up with so much, and the one thing she would never put up with is cheating. And so, there was a day where she found out that I was being unfaithful, with just texting girls and just, reaching out to, and just not being faithful in almost every fashion of the term. And so, I just remember one day she came in and she blew up, and that was it. She was gone and she left. She wasn't about to play any games. And so at this point, I think like I've been at rock bottom. I'm reflecting on my life. I realize that, man, my best friend, my brother, is the guy I'm stealing from. You know what I'm saying? Like, everything that I'm doing is just, everything's falling apart. And like, so just like Paul says, right, it's like the things I don't want to do, I do, and the things I want to do, I don't. And so, in that same sense, it's like, my mom's words, like, hey, that's the girl that you're going to marry, with her relationship with God. In my mind at the time, I'm like, man, this is maybe the one thing that I know that God's given me. And I screwed it up. That's my mindset at the time.
I can relate with that.
Yeah, so man, here I am, and I'm on my knees in the bathroom, and I'm just like, man, if you're there, God, I need you to help me out. And so he really impressed on my heart and spoke to me and just said, he said two things. He said, number one, you need to trust in me through everything you're about to go through, because you don't even know what pain is yet. And I'm sitting here on my knees in the bathroom. I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about, dog. I'm on my knees in the bathroom. It's P.O. right over there. I know what pain is, dog. And he's like, you don't even know what pain is yet. And he was right, man. But the second thing was, you need to start applying what you do know about me into your life and start applying the word when you read. And I was like, all right, cool. Got up, started getting in the word, and I'm reading. Lacey calls me up about 3 a.m, and she goes, just found out that I'm pregnant. So she finds out that I'm being unfaithful the same night we find out that we're pregnant.
Wow.
So I'm like, all right, okay. So we're on this phone call, and I basically just convinced her to come back and stay with me for the duration of the pregnancy. And when the kid's here, we can decide how to move forward from there. But I wanted to do my part in taking care of her, because at that point she was already pretty depressed with the way her life was, with me treating her the way I was treating her. Yeah. And I knew that when this all came out, it was going to be even worse. Yeah. And so I ended up picking her up in DeSoto, and we're heading back to the Allen area, and I just start telling her about this conversation I had with God, and she's like, fool, you think I'm stupid? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're just saying stuff to keep me around. And I'm like, no, I'm serious. And I started telling her about the conversation. And she says, well, what are you going to apply in your life? And I said, well, the first thing that I read was to confess my sins with my lips and that I'd be healed. And I remember just feeling so broken that I was like, I can't hold anything in anymore. And so I just need to let you in on all the dark secrets of my life, all the skeletons in my closets that people never knew about. And so I just pretty much, I got everything out and just like spilled my guts about some shocking stuff. Yeah. And, at that point, up until that point, Lacey knew me as this guy that was never vulnerable, a guy that was never opening up about anything. He had no problems, had no fear. This strong man, handsome, sexy man.
Let's go.
Very handsome. Did I mention sexy? And so, I think for the first time, she's like, man, this is the first time I've ever seen him so vulnerable. Yeah. First time I've ever seen and felt real honesty coming from him. So I kind of want to dive in a little bit more. And she's like, okay, maybe you did have a conversation with God. I'm talking about my porn addiction. I'm just talking about everything. I'm just talking about so many things that no one wants to talk about. Yeah. And so we were in the car for, I think, like 6 hours or something like that. We grabbed Taco Bell because we were hungry. Big mistake, because that just made me spend more time with the potty. And man, so we started going through that. And then she was like, what else are you going to apply in your life? And I remember, she said, or the word said, if your eye causes you to stumble, than gouged out, because it's better to go to hell, or better go to heaven with one eye than to hell too, right?
So you gouged out your eye.
Yeah, so I so I took out the first knife I could find, which they're always here, and no, man, I just, I've read that verse time and time again, but it was just words. But up until this point, I knew practically what it meant,
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, the first thing I'm going to do is give you my phone. And as you guys know that have lived in unfaithful situations, your girl gets to know the back of your phone real well. Mm-hmm. She don't know the front of your phone, she knows the back of the phone. Yeah. She ends up with your phone, you're like, hold on, let me go ahead and check something real quick, but you really just delete it. Let me, you know what I'm saying? And you're just deleting stuff or whatever it might be. But I gave her my phone and I said, here's all the passwords to all of my old accounts. Yeah. Facebook, MySpace, when MySpace was a thing, my Gmail, Hotmail, everything. Yeah. And I was like, you're going to look into my past and find a lot of pain, but I just want to show you that I'm being transparent. Yeah. So before I gave her my phone, I called my best friend up. I said, bro, I'm disappearing. Just know that I'm okay. I just got to do this myself. And he's like, cool, good. Hung up the phone, gave her my phone, and I went without a phone for 9 months. Wow. And I was running a business at the time. So for all you folks out there that are struggling with lust, that don't think you can give up your phone, you're wrong. You definitely can. And so, I mean, it was my biggest temptation for pornography, for connecting with chicks, for just everything that wasn't good and godly. So I was like, here's my phone. I gave her my phone, and at that point, she's like, whoa, because she knew how protective and serious I was about my phone. So I gave that up. Gave up all of my friends for at least a stretch of time that I needed to kind of build myself up. Yeah. And I just isolated myself in the Word of God, with godly people. The Lord brought me some amazing people. And the thing that really stuck to me was just God just saying, apply everything. Are you going to be a doer or a don'ter? You know what I'm saying? And I was like, man, I got to be a doer, because if this God thing doesn't work out for me, my life's not going to work out for me. Yeah. And if my life's not going to work out for me, I got no reason to live, so I'm just going to take it.
Wow.
And so I was just like, this is my last straw. Mm-hmm. And so if anything's going to work, it's going to be this God thing. So I'm going to go all in. And so I went all in. And so I think real quickly, man, I understood the value in surrender when it comes to, that heavenly currency, which is surrender. And just like, I've always said that your body is, it's like a house filled with furniture. Yeah. And God might be in you, but how much can He stretch out? Yeah. And so every time you give something up, He's got more room to move in. He's got more room to move in. And so I was just giving up everything. And so, the Lord just started breaking off just addictions of, nicotine and drinking and drugs and pornography and all this stuff. And of course, you got struggles here and there, but just understanding that, your heart's direction is for righteousness and for godliness. It really did a lot, man. It made me understand like what it meant to put yourself last, to be selfless.
That's amazing.
A lot of my wife and I, we lead a marriage group at our church now, which is a testimony in itself. And we still have struggles, and we're still not perfect. And sometimes we even feel that fleshly part of us is like we're not even qualified to lead a marriage group. But we all know what that looks like. But the reality is that anytime I put myself after my wife or my kids, and one thing that I always say, and something that I really try hard to live by, is that the life you want to live, it requires the sacrifice that you don't want to give. And so very true. And so anytime I in that moment where you're like, I'm gonna win this argument now, you end up paying back for the next few weeks. But if you're like, you know what, I'm willing to be wrong. I'm willing to let you have this one. I'm willing to step aside and maybe even thinking maybe I am actually wrong. It always at least creates harmony and peace. And so when I leave the battlefield at work, which is, we love church-based, it's awesome. It's not a battlefield, but the reality is it's hard. And going back to your place, which should be a house of peace, is another battlefield. You live a life it's not worth living. And so,
that's why that term is like, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? Like, in a marriage specifically.
100%.
Especially with strong-headed men like us, I would just say stubborn. Where it's like, no, I know I'm right, and even if I'm not right, I'm going to prove it somehow that I am right. You know what I mean? Sometimes just better be happy. Dude, that's incredible, bro. If you could say like one thing, because to me, kind of what I'm getting out of all of this is like, in order to get what you want, you have to truly surrender. In your case, it was to the Lord. You know what I'm saying? Like, and for other people, if they want to get out of like alcoholism, you truly got to surrender to whatever it is that you're trying to get out of it. So rehab, whatever. It has to be genuine surrender. So what would you say to like the viewers like 30 seconds, like almost like a challenge or commitment type thing?
I mean, you just got to look at it and see, like, you got to cut out all your plan B, C's, and D's for stuff. I mean, I know tons of guys, including myself, that have been like, you know, I'm not going to delete her number. I'm just going to change her name to like Sin in my phone so that when she does blow me up, I know it's Sin blowing up my phone, but you're still holding on to that tail end of something, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like,
cut it off.
You have to completely rip it apart, bro. Like, just like when Samson was on that road, you know, and the lion showed up, and the Spirit of God fell on him, he ripped that thing apart. It wasn't like, I'm just going to knock you out and run, let him get back up and come at me the next time.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to cut it out completely and really surrender to God and say, you know what, God, I know I've held on to this. I know it's felt like a lifeline, but I know that you are my only lifeline, and you're the source of everything. Yeah. So I'm willing to completely let go. It's the same with like generosity and everything else. It's when you let go of money because money's had a hold on you. Yeah, you find freedom in that. Yeah, and so it's like that with everything else. You got to be willing to really murder the enemy and pick up that cross and murder the flesh, which is probably your number one enemy, right? It's like, how many times did the devil really bother you? I don't know, but I know my flesh be bothering me on the minute every single day. Yeah. And so it's like, you got to be willing to put that thing on the cross and go all the way, right? Yeah. And finish the race and not be willing to let that enemy. So Matty Montgomery, right? He basically taught a message about sheep. I know this is way more than 30 seconds, but I think this is probably maybe one of the bigger value points that I'll add to this podcast. We can finish up, but it's like, you know, why was David used as king? You know, why was he used? Because when he was a kid, he was the one that was in charge of his father's sheep. They weren't even his sheep. They were the father's sheep, you know what I'm saying? And that'll preach. But you're looking at that, and it's like one gets away from the body, and it's like the enemy comes in the form of a lion, a bear, or a giant, or whatever it is. But he was willing to go to war over one sheep. Yeah. And so what is that one sheep in your life? Is it, man, I'm too tired to pray with my son or my daughter tonight. I'm just going to go to bed. Wow. I'm not going to pray with my wife tonight because maybe I'm mad. Or those little things. And when you keep making those compromises with the enemy, letting him know that, hey, you can have that one. Yeah. You can have that one. Before you know it, you'll open up your eyes and half your flock is gone. And you're like, oh, I'm in a dry season. Wow. I mean, you can say all you want about being a dry season, but God's flow never stops. Yeah. It's us that stops receiving it. Exactly. And that looks like being willing to compromise with the plans of the enemy. You know what I'm saying? And so I would just say, man, you got to be looking out for those one sheeps, that sheep that's getting away, and the devil's trying to take him. And you just got to be like, nope, I'm gearing up. We're going to war. Whether God shows up or not, I'm going to stand my ground, stand firm in the faith, and the enemy will flee. And so, and that's something that we all deal with. And no matter, you know, even myself, even with that principle in mind and value set into my heart and my mind, you still struggle with it. Yep. But you got to keep reminding yourself that, man, that one sheep is what I'm willing to die for. Yeah. So that when I have more, I'll be able to take care of those too. Wow. You know what I'm saying? That's amazing, dude. Well, bro, that'll wrap it up, dude. Cool. That'll wrap it up. Big time drunk. All right, man.